When Molly first stepped through the doorway, the air in the house seemed to change. It felt warmer, not in temperature, but in the quiet, homely way warmth can feel. Emily noticed it immediately. The faint scent of vanilla and clean linen, the soft whisper of her steps across the carpet, that calm, almost motherly smile. "Mrs. Hart?" Molly's voice was gentle, almost melodic. "Yes, you must be Molly," Emily said, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming so quickly." Molly took off her coat and hung it neatly on the hook by the door, as if she'd lived there all her life. The light from the window fell across her face, pale skin, light brown hair, warm gray eyes. Everything about her felt familiar. "Where's Maddie?" she asked quietly. "I'd love to meet her." A little girl of 6 peeked from the living room, tangled hair, a stuffed toy clutched in her hands. "I'm here." Molly knelt down so she was eye level with the child. "Hi, Maddie. That's a beautiful toy you have." Maddie didn't answer. She just stared at her, wide-eyed and studying, as if trying to remember something. Then she said, "I know you." Emily gave a nervous laugh. "Sweetheart, you must be mistaken. We've never met before, right, Molly?" Molly's smile widened just a little. "No, we haven't," she said softly. "But children often recognize people in other ways, deeper ways." After their previous nanny, Miss Clark, the house had felt dimmer, emptier. It had been 3 years, but sometimes Emily could still smell cinnamon and hand cream, the scent that always lingered after her. Back then, Maddie was only 3. She barely spoke, but she always reached for Miss Clark, smiling whenever the woman sang to her. Miss Clark had died suddenly, a stroke, in her sleep. Since then, Emily avoided the subject of nannies altogether. But Maddie grew older, and Emily's work consumed more and more of her time. When Molly appeared, it felt like fate itself had brought her to their door. That evening, the 3 of them sat in the kitchen. Molly quickly won Maddie's trust, telling her a story, no book, just memory, about a house where kind ghosts lived, keeping everyone from feeling lonely. Maddie listened with wide eyes. "What if one of them goes away?" "Then another takes their place," Molly said, looking straight at her. "Houses don't like being empty." A chill ran up Emily's spine. She tried to laugh. "I hope that's not a bedtime horror story." "No," Molly said softly. "It's just the truth." That night, Emily couldn't fall asleep. Downstairs, she heard footsteps, light, careful, unhurried. She assumed Molly was checking on Maddie and relaxed. But then came the faint sound of humming, a lullaby, old, familiar, the same one Miss Clark used to sing. And then, from Maddie's room, came a small, sleepy voice. "Good night, Miss Clark." In the morning, Emily asked her daughter where she remembered that name from. Maddie just shrugged. "I said, I can call her that again." Emily gripped her cup so hard that a thin crack spread across the porcelain.
On the 3rd night after Molly's arrival, Emily woke to the faint creak of a floorboard. She looked at the clock. 2:41 a.m. The house was silent, except for a soft groan somewhere downstairs, like someone pacing slowly through the living room. Her heart was beating too fast, that kind of instinctive panic when your body knows something before your mind does. She stepped into the hallway. A dim light glowed from under Maddie's door, the nightlight. Emily approached quietly, then stopped when she heard a whisper. "Did you come back?" A pause. "I missed you." Emily froze. Maddie's voice was small but full of joy, the kind that only children have when they see someone they love. She opened the door a crack. Maddie sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, staring out into the dark yard. The curtains swayed gently in the breeze. On the glass were tiny handprints, more than two. "Honey, who are you talking to?" Emily whispered. Maddie smiled without turning around. "With her." "With who, sweetheart?" "With Miss Clark. She was standing by the tree. She was watching us." Something inside Emily tightened. She stepped closer to the window. Outside, the lawn lay still and pale in the moonlight, the old apple tree stretching its bare branches like fingers. But there, at its roots, something shimmered faintly. Emily went outside, barefoot on the cold grass. The night air smelled of damp earth and apples long fallen. In the grass, she found a small hair clip, the one that used to belong to Miss Clark. A milky plastic butterfly with a cracked wing. When Emily came back inside, Molly was standing in the hallway, pale, one hand pressed to her chest. "Is everything all right?" she asked softly. "Yes," Emily hesitated, showing her the clip. "I found this outside. Did you happen to drop it?" Molly looked at it for a long moment, too long, before shaking her head slowly. "No, but I've seen one like it before, in the photo in your living room." In the morning, Maddie sat by the window, drawing quietly. On the paper were two figures. One was herself, with pigtails. The other, a woman in a long skirt, faceless. "Who's that, honey?" Emily asked gently. Maddie didn't look up. "She's the one who stands outside the window when it's dark."
That night, the rain came quietly, a slow, steady tapping on the roof, like fingertips brushing the wood. Emily couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house sounded alive, as if the walls were breathing, stretching, remembering. She got up, wrapped herself in a sweater, and went downstairs for a glass of water. The kitchen clock ticked too loudly. Somewhere above, a door shifted in its frame with a soft thud. Then came a sound she hadn't heard in years. Humming. A lullaby. It floated through the air faintly, almost carried by the house itself, rising and falling with the rhythm of the wind. Emily froze. It wasn't the voice of a recording, not the TV or the baby monitor. It was a woman's voice. She followed it to the hallway. The sound grew stronger near the stairs, low, calm, with that same melody Miss Clark used to hum while folding laundry or brushing Maddie's hair. Emily knelt down. The sound was coming from beneath the staircase. There was a small storage door under the steps, one she rarely opened. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the handle. The hinges groaned softly. The air inside was cold and smelled of dust and something sweet, like old perfume. For a moment, she didn't see anything. Then, in the half-dark, she noticed a shape, a rocking chair, moving slightly, though there was no draft. Emily stepped closer. Her foot brushed against something on the floor, a folded blanket. When she lifted it, a faint scent of cinnamon and hand cream filled the air. The humming stopped. A quiet voice, soft as breath, whispered from the shadows, "Shh, you'll wake her." Emily's pulse hammered in her ears. She stumbled back, slammed the door, and leaned against the wall, struggling to breathe. The house was silent again. Completely, unnaturally silent. In the morning, she tried to convince herself it was a dream. But at breakfast, Maddie looked up from her cereal and said, "Miss Clark says you shouldn't go under the stairs anymore." Emily's spoon froze midair. "Maddie, when did you talk to her?" "This morning," she said simply, "while you were sleeping. She was sitting in the rocking chair again." Emily turned to Molly. The nanny was pouring juice, her expression calm, unreadable. When she noticed Emily's stare, she smiled. "Oh, don't worry," she said softly. "Sometimes children just see what grown-ups forget." She set the pitcher down gently. The faint scent of cinnamon lingered behind her.
The house had a sound at night, its own slow rhythm. The soft pop of wood settling, the sigh of pipes, the faint groan of the old roof. But that night, something different crept in. Something softer, deliberate, human. Emily woke without knowing why. Her body felt tense before her mind even caught up. A faint murmur floated down the hallway. Two voices, one low and soothing, the other small and sleepy. She looked at the clock. 2:17 a.m. She got out of bed, her bare feet cold against the floor. The light under Maddie's door was still on. Emily approached, heart pounding, and pressed her ear to the wood. "Don't be afraid," a woman whispered. "I'm not," came Maddie's quiet reply. "I missed you." Emily's breath caught. She pushed the door open just enough to see. Maddie was sitting up in bed, the soft glow of the nightlight painting her in amber. Molly sat beside her, stroking her hair and humming the old lullaby. Her shadow on the wall was tall and still. But beside it, faint and trembling, was another shape, another woman's silhouette, moving slightly out of sync. Emily blinked, and it was gone. Molly turned, smiling gently. "Everything's fine, Mrs. Hart. She just had a bad dream." "A dream?" Emily's voice shook. "She said she missed someone." Molly nodded calmly. "She dreams of Miss Clark often. You shouldn't worry. Children remember love longer than we do." Emily forced a smile. Outside, the wind brushed against the window pane with a long, low sigh. When she glanced again, she noticed the photograph on Maddie's nightstand, the one of Miss Clark. Only now the glass was fogged, and a faint fingerprint marked the inside of the frame. The next morning, Emily tried to shake it off. Molly made breakfast, humming softly to herself, the same tune that now haunted Emily's mind. Maddie drew at the table, 2 women, 1 child. She colored the child bright yellow, the others gray. "Who's that, sweetheart?" Emily asked, trying to sound casual. Maddie didn't look up. "Molly," she said, pointing to one figure, "and Miss Clark. They're talking about me." Molly laughed softly, not looking away from the stove. "Oh, Maddie, you have such an imagination." But the way her fingers gripped the spatula, too tight, too steady, made Emily's stomach twist. That night, Emily awoke again. The same hour, the same faint whisper. She moved through the hallway slowly, every step measured, her breath shallow. From Maddie's room came the sound, that same low, tender voice. But when Emily opened the door this time, the bed was empty. The window was cracked open, curtains swayed, and on the pillow lay a photograph of Miss Clark. It was new. On the back, written in pencil, "She's not alone while I'm here." The next afternoon, Molly brought something with her. A small box, old, wooden, the varnish cracked with age. Emily noticed it the moment she stepped into the kitchen. "What's that?" she asked. Molly smiled. "A gift for Maddie. I found it in the attic." Emily frowned. "The attic's locked." Molly tilted her head slightly, still smiling. "Some doors open when you ask nicely." Before Emily could say anything, Maddie came running in, her eyes wide. "For me?" she asked. Molly nodded and placed the box in her hands. Maddie lifted the lid carefully. Inside was a porcelain doll, delicate, old-fashioned, with soft brown curls and a small blue dress trimmed with lace. Its glass eyes caught the light like water. Maddie gasped, "She looks just like me!" Emily's heart tightened. It was true. The resemblance was uncanny, even down to the faint birthmark above the doll's eyebrow. "Where did you say you found it?" "In a trunk under the eaves," she said simply. "It must have belonged to one of the children who lived here before." She touched the doll's hair gently, her fingers lingering. "She's been waiting to be found." That night, Maddie wouldn't sleep without the doll. She named her Sophie. Emily tried to laugh it off. Kids attached to toys, that's normal. But sometime after midnight, she woke to the sound of quiet talking. At first, she thought Maddie was dreaming, but the voices were distinct, Maddie's and another, softer, older. "Do you like your new friend?" the gentle voice asked. "I love her. She said she remembers me." Emily sat up, heart pounding. She tiptoed down the hall, pressed her ear to the door. Silence. Then a faint giggle. Two of them, overlapping. She opened the door. Maddie was asleep, the doll cradled in her arms, but Sophie's head was turned toward the door, toward Emily, and her porcelain lips were parted just enough to suggest a smile. In the morning, the doll sat on the dressing, perfectly still. Yet Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed in the room. The air was warmer, heavier. The faint scent of cinnamon lingered again. At breakfast, Maddie told her mother that Miss Clark had come by during the night. She said Sophie used to belong to her daughter, she said cheerfully. She said, now I can take care of her instead. Emily nearly dropped her coffee cup. "Maddie, how do you know that name?" Maddie blinked. "Molly told me. She said it's okay to talk to her. She said Miss Clark is happy now because we're all together again." Later that day, when Emily went to the living room, she found Molly quietly dusting the shelves. There was a photo on the table, one of Miss Clark holding a little girl with the same curls, the same blue dress, the same doll. Emily picked up the photo. "Did you put this here?" Molly turned slowly. "No," she said softly. "It was already waiting."
The house felt different now. Not haunted, just aware. Every sound seemed to listen to itself before fading. Emily noticed small things. Doors she swore she'd locked standing open. A lamp glowing faintly after she turned it off. The faint scent of hand cream drifting through empty rooms. Sometimes she'd walk in and swear the air was warmer, like someone had just been there. Molly didn't seem bothered. She moved quietly through the house, humming lullabies, always barefoot, as if she belonged to the place. Once Emily found her standing by the window, gazing toward the apple tree. "What are you looking at?" Emily asked. "The house is breathing again," Molly said softly. "It's happy. It remembers us." That night, Emily took a bath to calm down. Steam fogged the mirror, and in it she saw two figures, a woman brushing a child's hair, another standing beside them, watching. When she blinked, the glass cleared. She was alone, but the scent of cinnamon lingered in the air. Later, she found the doll, Sophie, standing upright near the mirror, not where she'd left her. And in the reflection, two dolls, one porcelain, one almost alive. Emily stumbled back.
Molly appeared behind her. "Are you all right, Mrs. Hart?" Emily swallowed. "You said you found that doll in the attic, but the attic's locked." Molly smiled gently. "Some doors open when the house remembers the right hands." That night, faint footsteps echoed across the ceiling. 3 slow taps followed, measured, patient, almost affectionate. Then came a whisper through the vents, soft as breath. "It remembers you too, Emily."
Molly disappeared one morning. Her coat still hung by the door, tea still warm in her cup, but she was gone. Emily called everywhere. Nothing. When she asked Maddie, the girl said calmly, "She went to meet Miss Clark." Emily froze. "Sweetheart, Miss Clark is gone." Maddie looked up with quiet certainty. "She said she can come back now, because I remember her." That night, rain came hard. Wind rattled the old windows. Emily checked each room, locking doors, turning off lights, until she noticed a window upstairs, wide open. Rain pooled on the sill. In the water's reflection, a woman's face, pale, smiling, not her own. Maddie didn't sleep. Emily heard her talking again. She opened the door and stopped cold. Maddie sat cross-legged on the bed, the doll Sophie in her lap. "She's here, Mom," the girl whispered. "Miss Clark came back." The room smelled of cinnamon and rain-soaked wood. Emily's breath fogged in front of her face, and near the dresser, a woman's shadow, still, waiting. In the morning, Emily found a business card on the windowsill. "Molly Clark, Child Care Services." The ink was wet. On the back, in pencil, "Thank you for letting me back in." A door slammed downstairs. Maddie called out cheerfully, "Mom, Miss Clark's home." When Emily rushed down, Molly stood in the hallway, drenched, pale, smiling. "It's all right now," she said softly. "She's not alone anymore." That night, the house whispered like a living thing, gentle, steady, full. And outside, beneath the apple tree, 3 shadows stood where there used to be 2.
Emily hadn't slept in days. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the same whisper. Slow, close, warm. Shh. She's still here. That night, Maddie refused to go to bed. She sat on her blanket, clutching the doll to her chest. "Mom," she whispered, "there's someone under my bed." Emily tried to smile. "It's just the house creaking, sweetheart. It's old." But Maddie shook her head. "No, it's breathing." Later, when Maddie finally dozed off, Emily crouched beside the bed and lifted the covers. Darkness, dust, and a smell, faint and familiar. Cinnamon and lotion. Her hand brushed against something soft. She pulled it out, a child's shoe, small and gray with age. Faded letters on the sole read, "C. Clark." Emily's throat tightened. She remembered those shoes. Miss Clark once kept them on her dresser, saying they'd belonged to her daughter, who never grew up. And then came the sound, a low, steady breath, under the bed, not her daughter's. Emily stumbled back, hitting the wall. The doll fell to the floor, its porcelain lips parting as a thin strand of hair slipped out. Human hair. Maddie sat up suddenly, eyes wide. "She's under there, Mom. Miss Clark's under the bed." A faint voice rose from below, the same lullaby, sung in a whisper. Emily yanked the blanket away. Only shadows. But the air was cold and pulsing, as if someone invisible had just exhaled. She ran to the bathroom, trembling, and saw words scrawled on the fogged mirror. I came back for her. Downstairs, the kitchen light flicked on by itself. On the table lay a photograph, Miss Clark holding a little girl. On the back, written in a child's handwriting, Madeline Clark, 2018. Emily's stomach dropped. That was Maddie's full name. Then from upstairs, a small, soft voice. Don't cry, Mom. We're together now. Emily turned toward the stairs. Maddie stood there, holding Sophie, and beside her, a pale figure with gentle eyes, Miss Clark, or what was left of her. She smiled, and her voice was sweet, almost kind. She belongs with me. She always has. Emily whispered, She's my daughter. Miss Clark's smile deepened. Are you sure? In the corner, the doll blinked just once, then smiled too. The morning came gray and still. No birds, no wind, just silence, thick and heavy, like the air before a storm. Emily found Molly in the kitchen, as if nothing had happened. She was making pancakes, humming softly. The smell of cinnamon filled the room. Good morning, Mrs. Hart, Molly said, smiling. You should eat while it's warm. Emily stood in the doorway. Molly, where were you last night? Molly flipped a pancake. With Maddie, she said. We went to the garden. Miss Clark showed us the tree. Emily's throat went dry. Molly, Miss Clark is dead. Molly turned slowly, her smile never fading. Oh, you're mistaken, she said gently. She's home now, and so are we. Later that morning, Emily sat by the window, eating pancakes with syrup. Molly brushed her hair, humming that same lullaby, slow and loving. Mama, Maddie said between bites, Molly says we'll always stay here. The house wants us to. Emily didn't answer. In the window's reflection, she saw them, herself, Maddie, and Molly. Only Molly's reflection was closer, smiling a fraction too wide, and her eyes in the glass moved a second later than the rest. That evening, Emily found a mirror in the attic, covered with a sheet. When she pulled it off, dust rose into the air, and in the reflection stood Molly behind her, smiling. But when she turned, the space was empty. She ran downstairs. Molly sat calmly on the couch, eyes closed, lips moving silently. Emily stepped closer. Molly? Molly opened her eyes and whispered, The house is awake now. The floorboards groaned beneath them, slow and deep. The walls seemed to exhale. A soft voice, Miss Clark's voice, drifted from somewhere inside the walls. It remembers us. Molly smiled wider. He remembers you too, Mrs. Hart. That night, Emily awoke to the sound of footsteps outside her room. Heavy, deliberate. She followed them down the hall and saw Molly standing at Maddie's door. What are you doing? Emily whispered. Molly turned. Her face was calm, her eyes gray and distant. She's safe now. She's home. Emily pushed past her and opened the door. The bed was empty, the window open. Outside under the apple tree, 2 figures stood, a child and a woman. They held hands. The wind didn't touch them. "Let her go!" Emily screamed. Molly appeared beside her, voice soft as silk. "She is where she belongs. The house keeps what it loves." Then every light in the house flickered once, twice, and went dark. When they came back on, the yard was empty. Only the doll lay in the grass, smiling up at the window. Morning came, warm and bright. The kind of morning that pretends nothing bad has ever happened. The house stood still, basking in sunlight. It didn't creak, it didn't sigh, it simply was. Emily woke in the armchair by the window. Her neck ached, her mind foggy. The air smelled of vanilla, and from somewhere far away came the faint hum of a lullaby. On the coffee table lay drawings, Maddie's. One showed 3 figures holding hands in front of the apple tree. Below it, written in bright crayon, "Now we're all together." She stood, unsteady, and glanced toward the kitchen. 3 cups sat on the counter, 2 full, 1 empty. The clock on the wall ticked softly. 3:09. Always 3:09. Molly sat by the fireplace, hands folded neatly in her lap. Her face was calm, her eyes half-lidded, as if she were listening to something Emily couldn't hear. Beside her, Maddie lay asleep, the doll Sophie tucked under her arm. Emily whispered, "Where's Miss Clark?" Molly smiled. "She's here," she said softly. "She always was. Some memories just needed new faces." Emily felt something shift in her chest, fear or grief or both. "You can't keep her," she said. Molly looked up, and for a moment her expression changed. Not angry, just sad. "The house keeps what it loves. That's how it survives." She turned her gaze to the window. The apple tree outside swayed gently, though there was no wind. By evening, the air had grown still again. Emily sat on Maddie's bed, stroking her daughter's hair, humming to herself, the same lullaby. Her own voice sounded strange, distant, automatic. When she looked in the mirror, her reflection didn't move in sync. It smiled first. Downstairs, Molly poured tea for 2. The clock chimed softly. The house exhaled. A week later, a blue car pulled up in front of the house. A woman stepped out with a young boy holding his hand. The realtor, a tall man in a navy suit, smiled warmly. Beautiful property, old but full of charm. The woman looked at the windows, uncertain. "It feels lived in." "That's what makes it special," he said, turning the key in the lock. "The house remembers kindness." The door opened with a soft creak. Warm air drifted out, sweet like vanilla and old wood. At the top of the stairs, 3 figures watched, a woman, a child, and a young nanny. They smiled. On the living room wall hung a new photograph. Emily, Maddie, and Molly stood together beneath the apple tree, all smiling. And behind them, faint and almost transparent, another woman, just watching. Below the frame, a neat inscription read, "The house loves when people stay."